The post-op room was washed in a pale light that didn't feel warm, but wasn't quite cold either. Just her quiet, suspended stillness. The only thing cutting through the silence was the soft beeping of a heart monitor, like some faraway metronome ticking between life and whatever's on the other side. Light lay motionless on the table. Her fur, still damp from the 8-hour surgery, clung to her skin like memory. A long, clean incision ran the length of her belly, stitched shut with dissolvable thread. A ventilator tube stayed lodged gently in her throat, each breath machine-fed and steady, though slowing now. Stabilized, but not awake. A doctor leaned over and made a subtle adjustment to the IV line. A nurse gently dabbed the corner of Light's mouth dry with gauze. No one spoke, because there was nothing left to say. Everything that could be done had already been done. In the corner of the room, behind a panel of soundproof glass, a small girl sat curled up on a wooden chair. Lily. Her hoodie was pulled low, sleeves wrapped tightly around a sketchbook that had clearly seen better days. Her eyes were open, but unfocused, like she was waiting for something she wasn't even sure existed anymore. And then it happened. There was no alarm, no flashing light, no doctor called out, just the tiniest twitch of an eyelid. A doctor looked up, blinked, thought maybe it was a trick of her own exhaustion. But then Light's nose moved, just a little. One ear gave a slow, barely there flick. And then, like he was lifting a mountain with her skull, Light tilted her head. Left. Not out of reflex, not from instinct. He was searching. And then, her gaze locked through the glass, right where Lily was sitting. No words, no bark, just a low hum in her throat. A thin, trembling whimper so fragile it sounded like it might break if anyone breathed too hard. The nurse closest to him froze. Her hand shot up to cover her mouth, and suddenly, she was crying. Not because the surgery had worked, but because of the way he looked. That wasn't the gaze of a dog simply waking up from anesthesia. It was the gaze of someone realizing someone else was still there, still waiting, still holding on. Outside the glass, Lily slowly sat upright. No one spoke to her. No one moved. But she lifted her head, looked up, and for the first time in weeks, her eyes, those heavy, silent eyes, lit up with something raw, something unnamed, something that only made sense in that moment. Light didn't blink. He just stared. That deep, unmoving gaze, like every drop of life still left in him was being poured into the one fragile thread between them. Don't lose her. Whatever happens, don't lose her. The whole room held its breath. The German shepherd, the one no one thought would make it, had just opened her eyes for the first time. And what he chose to see was the girl who hadn't said a single word in days. And neither of them looked away. The head surgeon took a quiet step back and exhaled soft and slow, like something he'd been holding for too long. Across the room, the older nurse turned away and discreetly wiped a tear from her cheek. No one smiled. No one cheered. Because everyone understood there wasn't just recovery. There was return. At that exact moment, Lily loosened her grip on the old sketchbook and gently set it down on the chair. For the first time since the accident, she wasn't clinging to it like a life raft. Her fingers trembled not from fear, but from something even scarier. Hope. A heartbeat. Something alive, pulsing in her chest again. She slowly sat up and pressed her palm against the glass. Inside, Light was still watching her. He didn't whine to her this time. He didn't move. Just lay there, head tilted slightly, eyes steady like stone. Between them, separated only by thick, clear glass, was something neither of them could name. But it was there. Real. Unmistakable. Something was starting again. They moved Lily to the inpatient recovery wing that night. The doctors said it was just for observation a couple of weeks, maybe more. Her body, they said, was doing fine. But her mind? It was still far away, somewhere unreachable. Her room sat on the left side of the rehabilitation wing. Every morning, soft sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains. But Lily always turned her face toward the wall. Her eyes were open, but empty, like the light itself made her ache. Each morning, the physical therapist would knock gently on her door, calling her name with a voice as soft as morning mist. Lily never answered. No matter how kind they sounded, no matter how patient they were, she never moved. Never even blinked. But one thing never changed. The pencil in her hand, the sketchbook on her lap, frayed at the edges, worn soft like cloth. Always there, like an anchor. They said Lily used to talk a lot, asked a million questions, even the kind no one had answers for. She liked to draw animals with big, floppy ears and wide, surprised eyes. On her backpack, she clipped a tiny silver bell. "So people know when I'm coming," she once said, "so the hallway doesn't forget me." But after the accident, everything vanished. Her voice, her laughter. Even the sound of her own footsteps, she didn't want to hear them anymore. That day had been blindingly bright. Sunlight filtered through the tree canopy and flashed hard against the windshield. The crash happened in a breath. She couldn't remember it all. Just the flash. The scream. And then, the silence. Since then, Lily stopped believing in the light. Every morning she shut the curtains tight. Fallen baby bird, small and shaking in a world that no longer felt like hers. The doctor sat beside Lily, keeping just enough distance. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, didn't try to fix anything. He just talked, like someone who knew silence by name. Told her that he once had a granddaughter, too. A little girl who stopped speaking for months after a terrible accident. And some kids, he said. They just need a different kind of language to come back to the world. A language without words. A few days later, Lily was taken to the observation hall, next to the recovery kennel. No one told her why. No one said what she should do. They just told her she could sit there if she wanted to, for as long as she liked. On the other side of the glass, Light was lying down. Her head rested gently on her front paws. One leg was still bandaged, but her ears flicked now and then, like she was listening to something far away. The first time Lily sat there, she was alone. No doctors, no nurses, just one wooden chair placed near the glass. She sat, and Light stayed still. No one called her name. No one asked if she felt better. No one said things like, "You're doing great," or "Keep trying." Just the sound of the air vents, a breeze slipping under the door, and the soft scratch of a pencil moving across paper. Some days, Lily didn't even draw. She just sat. Hands on her knees, eyes drifting somewhere in the quiet space between them. But she stayed. Like as long as Light was there, even without turning to look at her, the world felt a little less terrifying. Day after day, Lily asked if she could sit a little longer. Light never turned away, and Lily never looked anywhere else. On Thursday morning, like always, they rolled Lily's wheelchair into the hallway by the glass. She didn't ask for it, didn't resist, just sat as if her ritual had become part of her. A soft part. The wooden chair was there, same spot as always, just one arm's length from the glass. On the other side, Light lay in her usual position, head resting on her paws, watching the world like it was something fragile. Like one loud sound might shatter it. But today, something shifted. Lily didn't hang her head like she usually did. She opened her sketchbook. And for the first time, the page wasn't blank. In the center, a pair of eyes, drawn in pencil. Deep, still, but not empty. Not a perfect replica. But how they felt. The way they looked at her like they were asking a question and answering one all at once. She set the sketchbook down on her lap and looked up. Light didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't move. But her gaze never wavered. He hadn't taken her eyes off Lily since the moment she arrived. And then, as if pulled by something invisible, Lily lifted her hand, pressed her fingers gently to the glass, right over the spot where her heart always hurt in the mornings. On the other side, Light moved. For the first time since Lily had been coming, he stood. Not fast, not limping. He walked firm, slow, soundlessly, like something inside him had decided. It was time. Lily flinched, just a little, her fingers almost pulled back from the glass. But they didn't. Light stepped forward, closer, until her face was just inches from the barrier between them. He stopped, ears up, still watching. And then, with the softest, most delicate motion, he tilted her head and pressed her forehead against the exact spot where Lily's hand was resting. No sound, no bark, just a touch between two survivors. Inside the room, no one dared move. The nurse, standing a few meters back, realized she'd been holding her breath the whole time. The head doctor was there too. He didn't speak. He simply opened Lily's file and scribbled one line. Continue observation. Do not interfere. From that day on, Lily no longer curled up with a pillow in the dark corners of her room. Every morning in the observation hallway, she sat upright. She opened her sketchbook. And she watched every small movement Light made, like she was relearning how to live, breath by breath, through the rhythm of the dog on the other side of the glass. That night, the inpatient wing was quiet. Still, it was just past 1 a.m. when a young nurse, doing her usual rounds, noticed Lily's door slightly ajar. She peeked in. No panic, no shouting. She just listened, trusted her gut. And somehow she knew exactly where to go. She turned toward the recovery wing. There, under the soft yellow glow of the hallway lights, Lily was sitting on the floor, back resting gently against the wall, head tilted to the side. Fast asleep. On the other side of the glass, Light had curled up too, facing her. No words, no dreams needed, because the moment was already real. A quiet season change. Between two hearts that had once fallen so far. Now slowly, quietly, making their way back toward the light. The nurse didn't wake her. She just stepped forward, draped a thin blanket over Lily's small shoulders, then stood beside her in silence. Like any movement, any noise, might break the tenderness of what was unfolding. Behind the glass, Light opened her eyes. And in those eyes, so calm, so present, was something deeper than sleep. It looked like he was standing guard, over the little girl sleeping just beyond the glass. The next morning began with soft rays filtering through the trees outside the recovery center. The sunlight was thin as mist, weightless, just enough to paint the hallway gold. Lily woke up earlier than usual. No one called her. No one nudged her. She simply opened her eyes, sat up, and quietly looked out the window. A few seconds later, like it had become a new kind of habit, she reached for her sketchbook clipped her pencil in place, and looked at the nurse. No words were spoken, just one look. Enough for any grown-up to understand. Today, she wanted to see light. They wheeled her quietly to the glass window. No one said anything, not even Lily. Light was already there, lying still. But her ears twitched just slightly the moment she arrived. Lily smiled, then looked down, and began to draw. The pencil touched the paper. The first lines appeared slow, careful. She was sketching Light's back, not perfect, not smooth, but honest. She drew the way her shoulder dipped just a little, from the leg still wrapped in gauze. Light didn't move. He just breathed. Even that soft, even steady felt like it belonged to her now. And with every stroke of her pencil, Lily felt it. The breathing getting gentler, closer, like the space between them was shrinking, without anyone saying a word. The head doctor passed by. He stopped. Just stood there and watched, without saying a word. There she was, the same little girl who just a week ago curled herself into shadows like she wanted to disappear. Now, sitting in the morning light, drawing a sleeping dog. No one spoke. No one dared break the moment. Because they all knew some kinds of healing aren't in any book. They happen when two souls quietly find each other, without needing a single word. The head doctor passed through the hall. He paused, stood quietly, watching from a distance. That same little girl, the one who had clung to corners, barely lifting her head a week ago, now sat in the middle of the morning light, sketching a dog asleep behind glass. No one said a word. No one dared break the stillness. Because everyone understood some therapies aren't written down. They happen only when two souls meet, in silence. That afternoon, Lily didn't nap. Instead of going back to her room, she scribbled something onto a scrap of paper and handed it to the nurse beside her. "I'm not finished drawing." Light hadn't moved. Still breathing slow and even, as if he already knew the girl sitting outside wasn't just there to watch. Something quiet, something steady was growing between them. Day by day, it bloomed with the light. For the first time, Lily reached for her colored pencils. And she drew Light's eyes. Not brown, not black, but something in between, a shade you couldn't name. Dark and warm, like a small flame that never flared but never faded. A flicker of life that kept burning just enough to keep the cold away. A breeze slipped through the hallway, lifting the curtain by the window. Sunlight spilled across Lily's lap, and in that moment her sketch glowed. Behind her, the nurse exhaled. She didn't say much, just slowly raised her phone and took a photo. "Ter1," she whispered to herself, careful not to startle Lily. "Ter1, the head doctor needs to see." But Lily didn't turn. She was adding one final detail, a faint line, almost invisible, drawn into the edge of a coat. Not just any coat. The coat of the man who saved Light. A detail so small no one expected her to remember it. But she did. Exactly. When she was done, Lily didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just looked at Light, long and steady. And then, softly, as if it came from someplace deeper than thought, she nodded. On that cream-colored page lay a drawing in soft pencil. It wasn't a portrait. Not her face, not her usual pose behind the glass. It was something else. A moment. Rough, real, older than the hospital walls. In the sketch, Light stood between an overturned car and a small figure curled behind him. The figure was unmistakably her. Lily had drawn that scene over and over for days. Sometimes she focused only on the warped shape of the crushed metal. Sometimes on the blood beneath Light's feet. Sometimes she just sat there for hours, pencil in hand, staring at the paper, too many memories, too loud to draw through. But today, the final line was drawn, and her version, her one, felt truer than any that came before. Lily sat still, eyes locked on the image in her lap. And then, something shifted, something in her chest. The sketch in her mind, once frozen, started to move. She heard it first. The scream of tires slipping, metal shrieking, air being torn in half. Her mother's voice, sharp and terrified, hands jerking the wheel, trees blurring past the window, long shadows racing across glass. They weren't drawings anymore. They were back, alive. And Lily, for the first time since the crash, didn't look away. The tires slipped. The first impact threw the car off the ground, a violent jolt that knocked everything loose. Sound, air, thought. Lily couldn't remember if she screamed or just forgot how to breathe. Light had been in the back seat. He was calm seconds earlier, head resting, dozing maybe. But when the vehicle tipped left, he launched forward without hesitation. There was something in her eyes, wide but focused, scared but sure. And then he moved. He lunged through the space between the front seats, threw her body across hers, shielded her completely just before the window burst. The sound hit like a storm. Glass shattering, screeching metal, bone-deep pressure that collapsed the moment. And then, light. White, sharp, electric. Then blood. It was everywhere, not just seen, but smelled, felt. Warm, sticky, heavy, pressing into Lily's skin like it had its own weight. She didn't know whose blood it was, only that it clung to her, that it made everything feel both too real and not real at all. She blinked. Now, back in the hallway. Still sitting quietly. Her hand clutched the sketch, slightly trembling, the way your fingers tremble when your heart starts remembering faster than your mind can follow. She didn't want to remember it. No child would. But somehow every pencil stroke led her back, over and over again. That moment lived in the paper. It waited, silent, until her hand touched it, and then it woke. Across the glass, Light lay still, head resting between her paws, ears barely flicking, eyes closed, but not asleep. Lily looked down, folded the drawing gently, not to hide it, not to run, but to protect it, to keep it close, like something precious, not painful, a truth that mattered too much to be lost. She held it to her chest, and that night, for the first time since arriving, she brought it back with her, slipped it under her pillow like a secret only she and Light understood. No one asked. No one needed to. That night, Lily slept, no tossing, no gasping, no nightmares, just sleep. Still and full, like a soul finally allowed to rest. The morning didn't break, it arrived. Soft, slow, slipping through the curtains with the gentleness of a breath. When the caregiver walked in, Lily was already awake. She stood by the window, quiet and still, just watching the light come in. And her time, she didn't flinch. She stayed. She didn't say anything, just reached up and gently pulled back the curtain, the same one she'd avoided for weeks. And for the first time, sunlight hit her face, and she didn't flinch. Lily closed her eyes, then opened them again. No bracing, no shrinking, no fear. Something inside her had shifted. quietly. In the middle of that peaceful sleep the night before, she had taken one more step forward. Outside, the morning poured through the trees in slow, golden strands, like a greeting that didn't need words. The recovery center was still. Only the sound of leaves brushing softly against the windowsills. Lily arrived earlier than usual. No one called her. No one needed to. She pushed the door open herself, cradling her sketchbook against her chest, and walked straight to the glass to the place where Light always waited. He was still asleep. One ear folded down. The other twitched slightly, as if listening for something just beneath the surface of silence. Her bandaged leg rested gently on a folded towel. Her chest rose and fell in rhythm. And at the edge of her mouth, barely visible, the corner curled like he was dreaming of something soft. Lily sat down and opened her book. She didn't draw right away. She just watched. Watched the way the light touched the fur around her muzzle, wondered which parts the sun made brighter, tried to catch the glint that danced near her eyes. Then, slowly, her pencil moved. She traced the lines she now knew by heart, the curve of her nose, the slope of her brow, the places where her fur gathered in gentle waves. Her eyes followed the bridge of Light's snout, then adjusted the jawline, making it rounder, more true. She used her palm to gently blend the shadows around her nose, softening the edges until it almost felt like breath could rise from the paper. And something else changed. The lines weren't tight anymore, not sharp or stiff like they had been in the beginning. Now they were full, easy, gentle. Like Lily wasn't just drawing Light. She was remembering him, exactly the way he was, and always had been. Then Lily paused. Not because she ran out of ideas, not because she made a mistake. She just wanted to see it, the whole picture, to take in everything she'd drawn, every line, every shade, all at once. And in that stillness, something unexpected happened. Lily laughed. Software. Barely a W herper, like breath that accidentally turned into sound. But it was real, clear and honest. Even Lily didn't realize it came from her. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sharp. Just a quiet laugh, the kind that makes the air around you feel different. Lighter. Inside the room, Light was still asleep. But her ears moved. Just a twitch, then another. Slowly, her eyes opened. No panic, no sudden start. Just a gaze that felt like it had been there all along, waiting behind closed lids like he'd been dreaming, and the dream just happened to be her. He tilted her head slightly. Lily didn't look away at her time. She didn't rush to hide her sketchbook, didn't close it, didn't drop her eyes. She just smiled. Small. Software. The kind of smile that's born after a long, quiet silence, the kind that says, "I'm still here." Then, slowly, she lifted the drawing from the page, pressed it gently against the glass, right in front of Light's eyes. She didn't explain, didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She just left the drawing there so Light could see himself, through the eyes of the girl who once couldn't look at anyone. Light stared for a while, not blinking, just looking. And then something shifted in her chest, like he understood. Then Light lowered her head, resting it on her front paws. Her eyes closed slow, unhurried, like an answer, like a quiet yes, as if he knew, as if he felt it deep in her chest. "I'm still being seen." No one spoke, but nothing needed to be said. That afternoon, Lily's drawing was pinned to the wooden board outside Light's room, the one where the staff usually posted notices, or the kids hung up their sketches. Right below the drawing, in small, slanted handwriting, was the first sentence Lily had written to anyone other than her mother since the accident. "You're still here, and so am I." A caretaker passed by and paused. They read the words, then stood still for a moment longer, eyes soft, holding something they couldn't quite name. The sun touched the glass, warm and quiet. And inside, Light still slept. But it wasn't the same kind of sleep. Not heavy, not haunted. One felt softer, lighter, like a different dream had found him, one with sunlight. And a smile waiting at the end. Morning arrived gently in Pine Grove Forest. Sunbeams slipped through the trees, sketching hazy golden shapes across the ground. The air was fresh, still carrying the scent of damp earth and waking leaves. Birds called out through the canopy, their songs echoing down the narrow dirt trail that led toward the therapy center, a place where lost pieces found soft landings, and every silence was welcome. The group of autistic children had gathered. Parents held their children's hands, moving forward with cautious hope. There were quiet nods, W. Herpert encouragements, faces that didn't hide worry, but also didn't hide warmth. Staff moved calmly through the space, dressed in deep green uniforms. They checked their gear, spoke in low voices, and made space for the day to begin gently. At the front entrance, Lily stood with one hand firmly gripping Light's leash. He lay at her feet, still and watchful. Lily's eyes were different now. They carried something new, a quiet flicker of belief, of courage, a glow not loud but steady. Light looked up at her with calm eyes. One ear flicked as he listened to the world waking around them, the forest's breath, the rustling trees, the footsteps of new arrivals, all folding into a soft morning song only they seemed to hear. The group started moving along a narrow forest path, the ground soft with fallen leaves and snapped twigs. Footsteps, W. Herpert voices, and rustling branches blended together into a gentle rhythm, like nature was holding its breath for them. Each child walked with a different pace, each carrying their own kind of silence. Some looked around with wide-eyed wonder. Some clung to their parents, unsure. And Lily stayed calm in that quiet way of hers, not withdrawn, just steady, present. Among them was a small boy with tousled blonde hair. Her eyes were bright but easily overwhelmed too many sounds, too much sky. He barely spoke, mostly watched. When things felt too loud or too big, he'd shrink into himself, shoulders tight, gaze lost. He didn't ask for help, but he was the kind of child a story finds when it's ready to be told. Today, he would be the center of something no one saw coming. Lily tightened her grip on Light's leash, like she was passing him something invisible, a quiet message of readiness. Light walked with her, steps sure and slow. He wasn't just leading, he was guarding, grounded, tethered to her in something deeper than duty. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, scattering gold across the forest floor and the sleek black of Light's coat. The sounds of the woods whined in the trees, birds calling, breath steady and quiet, all folded into a peaceful melody only her place could compose. Parents spoke in soft tones. Camp staff checked supplies one last time. There was an energy between them not rushed, not forced, just a shared hope, like they all believed something good might happen here, today. Lily opened her sketchbook. She pulled out a few colored pencils and held them like small treasures. Her fingers didn't shake, her eyes didn't dart. She was ready, not just to watch, but to remember, to draw what mattered. They walked deeper into the trees, into a world untouched by cars or screens or hurried clocks. The deeper they went, the quieter it got, until even their laughter began to sound like it belonged to the forest. Lily walked beside Light, their steps matching. The boy with the blonde hair stayed a few paces behind, eyes wide and watchful. He hadn't spoken all morning, but her gaze kept drifting forward, as if something inside him was beginning to listen. The light through the trees was gentle, the kind of warmth that felt like a hand on your back, telling you you're safe. It wrapped around the group like a promise one only nature knows how to make. It was the kind of beginning that made you believe nothing could go wrong. But life, even in a forest, has its own way of turning. Through the soft murmur of leaves and giggles, a sudden scream cut the air. Sharp, piercing, real, heads turned, hearts jumped. The boy with the blonde hair had stopped, completely frozen, her eyes locked wide open, wild, frantic like he'd seen something no one else could. And in that moment, everything changed. The boy's breathing turned shallow and sharp, like he couldn't get enough air no matter how fast he tried. At first, her steps were wobbly, then suddenly frantic, uncontrolled. He yanked free from her mother's hand and ran screaming straight into the thick woods beside the trail. Tall trees, black with shadow, whipped past him like silent giants. Slivers of light flickered across her face as he crashed through low branches and dead leaves, vanishing deeper into the forest. Everyone froze for a second. Then chaos. Shouts tore through the calm. Adults called her name, voices echoing through the trees, panicked and helpless. They ran after him, but their steps felt too heavy, too slow. The boy's small figure darted like a startled deer, slipping past every arm that reached for him. And Light stood still only for a breath. He had felt it, that shift in the air, that tremble of fear no one else had noticed. Her ears perked, her muscles tensed. Then, in one clean motion, Light broke free from Lily's grasp and took off. No hesitation. Just purpose. He shot past the others, weaving through tangled brush and low-hanging limbs like he belonged to the forest. Each step was sharp, intentional, leaves scattered in her wake. The forest, so quiet before, now pulsed with the sound of something urgent and alive. Light ran hard, but her eyes stayed focused, scanning the ground, reading the boy's path, listening for the cries. He found him near the edge of a steep drop, right where the trees thinned and the earth fell away. The boy stood trembling at the ledge, unaware of the danger inches from her feet. Light didn't slow down. He bolted straight toward the boy, threw her body between him and the cliff's edge, and nudged him back just enough to stop what might have happened next. The ground crumbled under Light's back paws. Loose gravel tumbled. One of her front legs caught on an exposed root, cutting deep. Blood trickled down into the dirt, but Light didn't move. He stood firm, solid, unshaking. The forest fell into a breathless hush. Then came the pounding of footsteps. Shouts turned into gasps as the adults caught up, eyes wide, chests heaving. They froze when they saw him. Light, standing tall, leg bleeding, gaze locked steady on the boy now crouched behind him. No one spoke. Some just cried. Others Herpered, "Thank you," over and over to the dog who couldn't answer, but somehow already had. Far behind them, Lily had stopped walking. Her breath caught. She saw the blood on Light's paw, the way he stood, the way he didn't flinch, even though the whole world had tilted. Her chest tightened. But in her eyes, something else, a quiet pride, a knowing. Light wasn't just her friend. He was her guardian, her teacher, a protector of all children like her children still learning how to speak through the silence. Lily walked forward, slow but steady. She took the leash gently, her fingers brushing over the place where her leg was hurt. Her touch was soft, but her grip said everything. "I'm here," it whirpered. "I see you." And somehow, we keep going. The camp fell silent again, not out of fear, but reverence. Everyone stood still, as if even their breathing might disturb the fragile peace that had just been saved. The program continued. People regrouped. Children were guided back toward the trail. But that moment, the one where Light stepped into danger without thinking twice, stayed behind, etched into bark and dirt and memory. A reminder of love that doesn't ask for thanks, of loyalty that doesn't wait for applause, of the quiet power a German shepherd carries in every step, and the lives they choose to protect no matter what. Every eye lingered on Light's injured leg, where crimson had bled into black fur. No one said anything flashy. There were no loud praises, no cheers, just a silence filled with awe and a soft thread of worry. Hands moved quickly, carefully. Someone unwrapped a bandage. Someone else gently wiped away the blood. Each gesture quiet, as if even the breeze might hurt him more. These weren't just staff doing a job. They were friends, family. And the way they looked at Light, it wasn't just gratitude. It was love. The kind that comes from watching someone give everything without ever asking for anything back. They stroked her head, whirpered her name, held their breath as the bleeding slowed, as if every touch was a way of saying thank you for stepping between danger and a child who couldn't protect himself. Lily stood nearby, eyes shining with tears that didn't fall. They didn't need to, because everything she felt was carved into her silence: worry, pride, love. She reached for the leash, her grip tightening just a little, not out of fear, but to ground herself, to remind Light that she was here, that they were still tethered not just by rope, but by something deeper. The warm blood on Light's fur said it all. The road ahead would be long, hard, sometimes painful, but never lonely. Not with each other. The sun dipped lower, scattering golden light across the forest floor, and there they stood, Lily and Light side by side, still and quiet. A picture of hope. A girl who once couldn't speak, and a dog who never needed words. Her bond between a child and a German shepherd wasn't just companionship. It was strength, quiet, steady, unbreakable. Somewhere behind them, someone whirpered, "He saved a life today." Another voice followed, softer still. "That's the power of love." And that was it. The whole camp fell still. No need for applause. No need to explain. Everyone felt it. Tiher wasn't just a story about a brave dog. It was a story about hearts that protect, without asking, about loyalty that lives in silence, about how real love doesn't shout, but it echoes forever. Lily looked at Light, her eyes full of gratitude. And something more. A decision. She knew now that their journey wasn't just about healing themselves anymore. It was a promise. To stand for others. To protect the ones who needed it most. And as the wind slipped gently through the leaves, carrying away the last traces of fear, something new settled in its place. Peace, and the quiet kind of hope that never fades. Soft morning light filtered through the narrow slits of the window, painting pale ribbons across the cool cement floor of Light's kennel. The space wasn't large, but it was cared for with quiet intention. A soft bed sat neatly in the corner, and clean bowls of food and water were always full. Somewhere in the distance, birds called to one another. The wind outside rustled through the tall trees, humming like a lullaby through the glass. Teher was Light's haven, her quiet place, the one constant after so many storms. Outside the door, Lily stood still. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the cold metal handle. Her heart beat faster not out of fear, but from something deeper, a mix of nerves, excitement, and the kind of hope that feels fragile, like glass. She had waited for Ter, to finally be allowed inside, not just as a visitor looking through glass, but to step into the space that belonged to Light the dog who had carried her through the darkest months. The friend who never spoke, yet always knew. The one who stayed. Lily took a breath. Then slowly, gently, she opened the door. Lily stepped forward slowly. Each footfall was quiet, careful, like she didn't want to disturb something sacred. The stillness in the room felt holy, and she moved through it like someone stepping into a memory. She breathed in deep. That familiar scent was there, a mix of forest air, damp earth, and the warm, musky smell of Light's fur. It wrapped around her like a blanket. Safe, like coming home. Light had already opened her eyes. Those deep black eyes found Lily immediately, steady and soft, shining with a quiet joy only meant for her. He lifted her head, one ear twitching slightly, and then without rushing he stood up. He took a step toward her, then another. Each movement was calm, sure, and somehow every step felt like a story, one about loyalty, love, and a promise that had never once been broken. Lily felt her breath before she felt her touch, warm and steady. She smiled through the sting in her eyes, not from pain, but from something deeper. Gratitude. Trust. Something that had been lost once and had now returned. She reached out, gently resting her fingers against the bridge of her muzzle, right where her breath came through quiet and even, as if reminding her, I'm still here. Lily lowered herself beside him, knees to the floor, settling into the silence they shared. Her hand drifted to the scar on her wrist, a mark of everything they'd lived through. Light leaned in, gently pressing her nose against that same spot. It wasn't an accident. It was memory. It was love that never left. No words were said. None were needed. But in that one quiet moment, something unshakable passed between them. Their bond not just rebuilt, but reborn. Stronger. Deeper. Outside, the morning sun grew bolder, warming the walls, softening the air. Even the light seemed to carry a message. You've made it through. And what was once broken is now whole. Lily looked at Light. Her eyes were steady now. Grateful. Brave. Because she knew, with every beat of her heart, that her wasn't just about healing anymore. It wasn't just her journey or her. Her was a promise, to protect, to comfort, to show others that hope still lives. And as the last shadows of the storm faded into light, that promise stood tall, right there between a girl and her dog. Light moved closer again, slow and deliberate until her nose brushed her wrist one more time, right where the scar still lived. And in her eyes, something flickered. Recognition. Warmth. Memory. I remember, her eyes seemed to say. Lily leaned forward. Her hand rested on her head, fingers gently brushing over the familiar curve between her ears. Her voice came out soft, trembling but true. I remember too, Light. That voice, it wasn't just a W. Herper. It was a thread. Something invisible that reached across time and space and pulled two hearts back to the same place. In that moment, time stood still. Everything around them faded to quiet. No more sound, no more movement. Just two sets of eyes, a girl and her dog finding each other again. Not as strangers, not even as old friends, but as two souls that had never really been apart. Light pressed her muzzle gently against the scar on Lily's wrist, anchoring them both in the now. Her warmth, her weight, her breath, it grounded her. Let her feel that yes, to her was real. He was real, and he wasn't going anywhere. Lily closed her eyes, letting it sink in. That steady pulse, that silent comfort. It wasn't just a reunion. It was a return. Together they were picking up the story where it left off. Not from the beginning, not with wounds, but with quiet strength. And just like that, Lily felt something rise inside her, not fear, not sadness, but a calm and powerful knowing. Light wasn't just her companion. He was her protector, her teacher, the one who taught her to trust again, to love again, and to keep walking forward even when everything around you goes dark. She smiled. Softly. Not wide, not loud, but warm. Honest. Sunlight spilled through the window behind them, casting a soft glow around their bodies like a gentle halo. It felt like a blessing. Like the world itself was recognizing what had just been restored. All they'd been through, all they still had to face it, didn't feel as heavy anymore. It felt like the beginning of something better. A promise. A path they would walk together, side by side. Not just to heal, but to help others heal too. Lily knew there would still be hard days, days when the weight crept back in. But her friendship, her bond, it would be the thing that held her steady. That quiet fire that never burned out. Light turned toward her, calm and steady, her eyes shining with trust. Ready? Lily reached up and stroked the side of her face. Her voice, almost a Abu Herper, "We're in her together, Light, always." And somehow, in that moment, peace wasn't just silence anymore. It was connection. It was two hearts breathing as one. Hope flickered back to life. And stayed. Later, Lily sat by a small wooden table in her room. Sunlight streamed through the window, painting warm stripes across her face and shoulders. Her hand rested gently on Light's thick black fur. He laid beside her, quiet and still, her breath rising and falling in sync with hers. The memories came, slow and soft like waves. She remembered the shadows, the loneliness that used to stretch out forever, the nights when sleep never came, and the silence in her chest felt too heavy to carry. She remembered curling up into herself, too scared to speak, too tired to cry. But now, in her golden light, none of that felt sharp anymore. Now she felt safe. And safety wasn't something you could fake. It was like a mountain. Quiet, solid, unshakable. Light wasn't just her dog. He was her protector, her anchor. Every time he looked at her, she felt it, that silent shield around her heart, like an umbrella that never folded, not even in the worst storms. That warmth, it wasn't loud, but it was steady. It lived in every breath, every blink, every still moment. Lily closed her eyes for just a second and let herself feel it. She didn't need to say it out loud, because Light was already there, and he always would be. From that moment on, something quietly shifted inside Lily. It wasn't loud or sudden, just the quiet beginning of a new chapter, a new path, not just with Light, but with herself. She opened her little notebook, its blank pages soft and waiting, like fresh snow untouched by footsteps. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up her pen. Each word she wrote didn't just record a memory, it stitched together pieces of her spirit, the scattered parts, the broken ones, the quiet parts that had gone unheard for so long. Journaling became her anchor, a quiet place where she could speak without speaking, where she could lay down fear, pick up hope, and draw tiny joys like stars on the margins. Some days, her pages held more dreams than memories. Other days, they carried heavy silences she couldn't yet explain. But with every page turned, Lily felt more whole, more understood, more held. Light lay beside her the whole time, her eyes following the motion of her pen. He didn't move much, just watched, like a guardian who knew words could heal just as powerfully as silence. In her stillness, he was her mirror and her teacher, watching her grow, cheering her on without a sound. Her wasn't the end of anything. Lily knew that. The road ahead would still twist and rise. There would still be storms, still be days when shadows came to visit. But she no longer feared them, because now she had light, and light was more than just a friend. He was her fire, her anchor, her quiet, unwavering warmth in the coldest nights. That evening, Lily closed her journal with a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She pressed her palm against the cover for a moment, feeling something stir in her chest. Strength, not the kind people see, the kind that blooms inside when no one's watching. Her bond with light wasn't just comfort. It was power. It was proof that healing doesn't always come from noise or speed or big steps. Sometimes it comes from stillness, from a pair of watchful eyes, from a hand on warm fur and a soft breath beside you in the dark. That bond would carry them forward, no matter what waited on the road ahead. A tiny flame, steady and bright, burned quietly between them. It would be enough. Enough to light the way, enough to hold on to when the world trembled again. Hope, for Lily, wasn't just a feeling anymore. It lived inside her. It had a face, 4 legs, a heartbeat, and a name, Light. Morning came gently. Sunlight filtered through the trees, soft and golden, dancing across the path blanketed in fallen leaves. The air was fresh, carrying the clean scent of damp earth and wildflowers. Birds filled the sky with their songs, weaving music into the breeze like a soft welcome. Lily held on to Light's leash, her grip firm but calm. Each step they took together down that wooded trail felt like a celebration. Her was the first time Light had walked freely outdoors since the accident. No fences, no limits, just trees, light, and open space. He moved with quiet grace, steady and sure, like he belonged there, like he remembered her rhythm step by step, heart by heart, walking beside her girl. Sunlight shimmered off her black coat, casting ripples of silver with every turn of her shoulders. He was no longer just a dog recovering. He was a warrior, a survivor, a protector, reborn. Each step Light took left a mark, not on the ground, but in Lily's chest, a reminder of how far they'd come, of everything they'd fought through together. She watched him, her heart full. He was stronger now, not just in body, but in spirit. And the bond between them, that invisible, unshakable thread, was glowing. There was something sacred in the way they moved. Together, but unspoken. As if no one else could fully understand it. And maybe no one had to. In that quiet morning light, with nothing but the forest and their footsteps, Lily knew the truth. They weren't just healing anymore. They were becoming. They walked side by side along the narrow trail winding through the camp. Light's breaths matched Lily's steps, steady and soft, like a shared rhythm only they could hear. Every now and then, their eyes met, and though no words were spoken, something passed between them. A silent vow, a quiet knowing. Love didn't need to be spoken aloud when it was her deep. "We'll keep walking together, Light," Lily W. herpered. And Light responded with a gentle whine, low and warm, like a promise wrapped in fur. But her path wasn't just a walk through the trees. It was a turning point, a quiet beginning. Each step forward was a declaration. They were no longer trapped by fear. They were moving toward something new, something bright. Sunlight spilled through the canopy above, dappled and golden. Birds sang from unseen branches, as if the forest itself was welcoming them back. As they walked, the world around them softened. Even the wind felt different, kinder, like nature was leaning in to listen, to bear witness to her quiet miracle, Lily's return, Light's resilience, the friendship between them, now reborn in something deeper than loyalty. They didn't rush. There was no need. Lily and Light moved as one, two souls bound not by leash, but by trust. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. That certainty alone was enough to steady every breath, every step. Above them, the sky stretched wide and clear, clouds drifting like old memories ready to be let go. The sun glinted off Light's coat as he walked beside her, alert but calm, her tail gently wagging with each stride. Today's walk marked more than recovery. It marked a return. For Light, it was her strength reclaimed. For Lily, it was the moment her spirit opened, fully, finally, to the world again. With every step, Lily's smile grew a little more certain. Her grip on the leash softened, not from doubt, but from peace. She didn't need to hold on so tightly anymore. She trusted the path. She trusted herself, and she trusted Light. That bond, quiet but unbreakable, shone in the way they moved, in how Lily's face turned toward the sun without flinching, and how Light paused every now and then to check on her, as if to say, "We're okay now." And they were. They really were. In the days that followed, something remarkable began to unfold. People noticed. They saw it in Lily's eyes. Brighter now, clearer. They heard it in her voice when she spoke, no longer hesitant, but calm. Real. Even her smile, once a flicker, had become something whole. Warm. Effortless. She laughed more now. She didn't shrink from touch or voices. She no longer folded inward like she once had. Instead, she began reaching out, drawing pictures for others, offering to help, asking questions during group sessions. She was blooming. And everyone around her felt it. Doctors exchanged quiet smiles. Staff paused a little longer during their rounds. Even other kids, once unsure how to approach her, began gathering near. Lily wasn't just healing, she was leading. The little ambassador ceremony was held on a late spring afternoon. The camp's common hall was decorated simply, wildflowers in jars, handmade banners, laughter filling the air like music. But when Lily stepped onto that stage, everything grew still. She was small, quiet. But in that moment, she was the brightest thing in the room. The applause came like a wave, gentle at first, then swelling as every pair of hands joined in. Lily took a slow breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes didn't waver. She looked out at the crowd, at the nurses, the parents, the other kids, and smiled. It wasn't big. It didn't need to be. It was real. A counselor stepped forward and handed her a certificate. The words, "Bridge Program, Young Ambassador," printed in soft blue letters across the top. But it wasn't just paper. It was proof that she had come through, that she had changed. That Light and the love they shared had carried her back into the world. From the back of the room, Light sat watching, ears alert, tail curled neatly around her paws. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. Lily had walked that stage because Light had walked beside her. Always. The Bridge Program. A title both humbling and immense. But in Lily's heart, it wasn't just an honor. It was a quiet vow. A torch passed down through many hands. People who had built her program from love, who had protected and lifted up kids like her when they had no one else. Beside her, Light stood silently, her gaze glistening like he understood every beat of her heart. No words, just presence. The kind that grounds you, anchors you, holds you up when your knees feel like they might give out. Inside her chest, something swelled. Not fear, not nerves, but strength. Strength pulled from every scar, every sleepless night, every step she'd taken to stand here now. She turned to Light, eyes shimmering with soft tears, and W. Herperd, not loud but steady. I'll make them proud, I promise. Because Lily understood. Ter wasn't just a certificate or a moment in the spotlight. Ter was a promise to be the voice for those who couldn't speak yet, a quiet bridge between pain and healing. As the ceremony ended, Lily stood with Light at her side, her shoulders a little straighter, her heart full, her spirit calm but ready. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The late afternoon light filtered through the windows behind them, casting golden streaks on the floor like a path forward. A path of courage, of love, of something bigger than either of them alone. Their steps that day weren't just signs of recovery. They were the beginning of something new, a new journey, rooted in hope, powered by dreams, carried forward by an unbreakable bond. Ember was born on a quiet night. No noise, no chaos, just stillness. While the other pups in the kennel yipped and wrestled under the warm light, Ember stayed curled near the edge of the pen, quiet and observant. Smaller than the rest. Softer. But there was something in those eyes. Deep, aware, like Ember wasn't just seeing the world, but reading it. Lily often found herself sitting near Ember's enclosure, her fingers resting on the edge of the wooden slats, just watching. There was something about the little pup that tugged at her. Something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just that Ember was Light's pup. It was the way Ember moved, the way Ember listened, that same quiet strength, that same calm, deliberate focus. Ember didn't rush, Ember didn't bark for no reason. But Ember watched everything. Under the sun, Ember's coat gleamed, a sleek black that shimmered with every breath. Each paw step was small but precise, and when Ember lifted her head, the whole room paid attention. Even the grown dogs seemed to pause. Lily felt a quiet pride rise in her chest. She didn't need Ember to be loud, or flashy, or perfect. She just needed Ember to be. Every now and then, she'd reach her hand over, resting it gently on Ember's back. The pup would lean into her palm, not seeking attention, just accepting the moment. And in that small, wordless gesture, Lily felt it again. The same warmth she had with Light. The same trust. The same spark of a promise, not yet spoken but already understood. Because Lily knew, just as Light had once stood between her and the dark, one day Ember would do the same for someone else. A new protector, a new friend, a new beginning. Days passed, and Ember continued to grow, bit by bit, stronger, wiser, and more aware. But that same quiet mystery in Ember's eyes never faded. There was always something deeper behind them, like Ember was carrying thoughts no one else could quite touch. One golden afternoon, as sunlight slipped gently through the trees, Lily sat beside Ember in the garden behind the rehab center. The world was quiet, wrapped in warmth and wind. She reached out, letting her fingers brush Ember's fur. "Ember," Lily W. Herperd, her voice soft. I know you're the keeper of memories, aren't you? You're going to guard the stories. You're going to protect what matters most." Ember let out a low, tender whine, almost like a vow made in silence. But the calm didn't last. That night, the storm came. The kind of storm that didn't just shake trees, it shook hearts. At first, the center still felt safe. The scent of rain in the air, the distant roll of thunder. Lily had felt these before, always with light beside her. But tonight felt different. The wind howled louder, sharp and sudden. Lightning tore through the sky like cracks in glass, and the rumble of thunder echoed through Pine Grove like drums of warning. Before the rain hit, Ember was already uneasy, ears flattened, chest rising fast. And then came the first strike of lightning. Something inside Ember broke loose. With a sharp cry, Ember tore away from the pen. The little paws thudded against the wet ground, vanishing into the trees just as the sky opened and the rain poured down. Voices rose, flashlights swung. The center staff rushed out with umbrellas and radios, shouting Ember's name into the dark storm. Rain blurred their eyes. Wind carried their voices away. Lily stood frozen at the edge of the woods, soaked and shaking, but not from the cold. She closed her eyes and reached deep inside. That feeling again, that strange, old warmth in her blood, like something ancient humming in her bones. She opened her eyes and ran. No hesitation, no fear, just a girl and a promise chasing through the rain. "Ember!" She pushed past low branches and slick leaves. Mud soaked her shoes, her legs burned, but the fire in her chest kept her moving. Her voice rose again and again, through wind, through thunder. And then, just as suddenly as Ember had disappeared, there she was. At the edge of a clearing, drenched and shaking, Ember stepped from the shadows. Exhausted, but safe. And when Lily knelt in the mud, Ember limped toward her and placed one tiny paw on her knee. Quiet, deliberate. Exactly like Light once did. Lily's breath caught. Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't look away. Her hand cupped Ember's face, brushing back wet fur, feeling that same pulse of life, that same fire. And in that moment, something old was reborn. The red thread that had tied Lily to Light now passed on. Not broken, not lost, just continuing. Ember's journey had begun. And with Lily by her side, no storm would ever be too big. That night, the sky remained restless. Clouds roared and wind screamed. But inside the small shelter, wrapped in blankets and silence, Lily and Ember curled beside each other on the floor. Safe. Together. And something deep inside them both knew. Her was only the beginning. The entire camp erupted into urgent action. Staff, parents, and even the children began calling Ember's name into the roaring storm. They split into groups, clipped on flashlights, and disappeared down muddy trails, cutting through the thick brush and shadowed trees. Ember! But the name echoed into nothing. Rain came harder, soaking their clothes, turning the forest floor into a maze of slippery roots and leaves. No paw prints, no whimper, no sign, just wind and worry. At the edge of the woods, Lily stood still. Drenched, shivering, but unmoving. Her heart was heavy, thudding against her ribs like a drum of fear, but deep inside, something older and stronger kept her steady. She couldn't leave Ember out there. Not when Ember carried so much. Without waiting for anyone else, Lily stepped into the trees. Her flashlight flickered like a weak star in the downpour, but she held it firm. Each step forward was quiet, but full of resolve. She wasn't just searching, she was calling across time, across memory. Ember. Her voice didn't rise in panic. It was soft, warm, like a memory come back to life. Like how she used to call light in the darkest hours. Her words moved through the storm like a ribbon of hope, winding through trees, brushing past leaves. Lily walked through wet ferns and under low branches, hair clinging to her face, socks soaked through. But she didn't stop. The fear faded behind her. All that was left now was faith. Then, from the shadows, something stirred. A shape, small, soaked, and walking slowly toward her. Ember, limping, shivering, but eyes still bright with recognition. The pup came closer, and without a sound, gently placed one tiny paw on Lily's knee. Just like light used to do. Lily dropped to the forest floor, the mud swallowing her knees. She pulled Ember into her arms, her tears falling with the rain, mixing into something sacred. That gesture, simple, quiet, was everything. The red thread that once bound her to light hadn't ended. It had continued. Through Ember, the new guardian of memory. The friend born not to replace, but to carry on. By the time they returned to the clearing, the storm was breaking. The clouds thinned, and streaks of light began to pierce through. Hand in paw, soaked to the bone, Lily and Ember walked back to the center, their hearts no longer afraid. Her wasn't the end of something. Her was the beginning, a new chapter, a new promise, and a love that would never fade. Later, standing alone in the woods, Lily turned back one last time. Rain still dripped from the branches, but the storm had passed. The world felt quieter, softer. In her chest, the pulse of hope beat steady. She whispered Ember's name again, not out of fear at her time, but with tenderness, like a lullaby. And from the trees, Ember came, steady steps, damp paws, and eyes that understood everything. He had come back, not just to be found, but to find her. And in that moment, with rain still falling and the forest watching in silence, two souls reunited. The red thread was never broken. It had only waited for its moment to shine. Lily stood frozen. Her heart didn't just skip a beat. It paused, completely, held still in the weight of that moment. Ember had stopped right in front of her. No fear, just calm. Then softly, with the gentlest grace, Ember raised one small paw and placed it on Lily's thigh, just like light used to do in those first fragile days when everything felt like too much. That gesture said everything. A silent promise, an invisible bond, an unbreakable thread of connection. Ember looked up into Lily's eyes, and in those deep black pools, there was something ancient, something wise, a knowing far beyond her age, like he could see all the memories, all the weight Lily carried, and held them gently in her gaze. Lily reached out and ran her fingers through Ember's soft, wet fur. Warmth surged through her hands, up her arms, and straight to her heart. Tears slipped down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from joy, from relief, from that sacred kind of gratitude that doesn't need words. In that one moment, every fear melted away, every question was answered. Ember wasn't just a puppy. He was the keeper of memory, a living thread in the legacy of love that had begun with light, a story not forgotten but continued. Two small souls, wrapped in silence, holding each other in the quiet of the woods. The forest itself seemed to exhale, giving them space to breathe, to feel, to begin again. Lily knew then a new chapter had opened, one full of magic and meaning. A path where friendship, loyalty, and the power of being different would not only survive, they would shine. she made a silent promise. To protect Ember, the way Light had once protected her. Together they would face the road ahead, not with fear, but with fierce love and quiet strength. No matter what came next, they'd walk through it, side by side. Above them, the stars shimmered over Pine Grove, each one like a witness to her sacred meeting, like blessings Herped from the sky itself. To her wasn't just a story about survival. To her was about revival, about belief, about daring to begin again. And so, under a sky full of starlight, the journey of Lily and Ember, the new keeper of memory, quietly began. No thunder, no spotlight. Just a girl, a pup, and a love strong enough to light up the darkest woods. Every dream that once felt far away was now a little closer, a little more real. Because together, they would make it so. The overcast afternoon crept silently across Pine Grove. The sun, already dim, cast its final tired rays through the thick canopy above, painting pale streaks of light across the forest floor. The camp, nestled at the edge of the ancient woods, felt still in a way that didn't feel peaceful but tense, waiting. There were no birds singing, no children laughing, just the wind, brushing through dry leaves, and the sound of footsteps. Quick, heavy, unfamiliar. They came in shadows, not rangers, not nature lovers, not protectors of the forest. These were hunters, not the kind who followed tradition or honored balance. These men hunted for profit, and their target was Light. To them, Light wasn't a hero, wasn't a healer, wasn't a friend. He was a prize, a purebred German shepherd with midnight black fur and a noble posture that turned heads. In their eyes, that beauty had a price tag. High, tempting, irresistible. They moved like ghosts, slipping between trees and fences with a cold, practiced ease, every step silent, every breath calculated. No one saw them coming. Until it was too late. In the span of a breath, before anyone could call out, before any alarm could sound, Light was surrounded. A net dropped. A blow struck. A yelp echoed through the air like a crack of heartbreak. Then, silence again. They shoved Light into a small metal cage, too tight for her strong frame. Her head bent low, tail stiff with fear. Blood trickled from a wound above her shoulder where one of them had struck him. They didn't care. To them, pain was a tool, starvation, a method. Their goal wasn't just to capture Light, it was to break him, strip him of the defiance in her eyes, dull the fire that refused to go out. They wanted a tamed trophy, not a soul. So they beat him, they starved him, they herped things like, "He'll fetch more if he behaves," and get rid of that look in her eyes. But Light didn't bow. Not even when hunger twisted her gut. Not even when her cage shook with each angry kick. Because somewhere, beyond the cold bars and blood-stained floor, Light still saw her face. Lily. The little girl with the scar on her wrist and the fire in her voice. Her reason, her light. And no matter what they did to her body, they couldn't reach that part of him. The part that remembered. The part that loved. The part that promised, "I will always find my way back." Even if they locked him in darkness, they had no idea. You can cage a body, but you can't bury the light. Not when it lives in both a dog and a girl who never stops believing. Even after everything they did to him, Light's eyes still held fire. Bruised, starved, caged, but never broken. Her once glossy black coat was matted now, dulled by grime and dried blood. Yet in that mess of fur was something untouchable dignity. Light didn't bark or thrash like they expected. He didn't give them the satisfaction of fear. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was strength, heavy, unspoken, undeniable. Anyone who stood near him felt it. A quiet, unwavering force that refused to be tamed. Back at the camp, the news hit like a bolt of thunder. Light was gone, no warning, no trace, just an aching absence that stretched through every hallway, every heart. The staff went numb, the children cried. Even the trees around Pine Grove seemed to hang lower in the aftermath, mourning the soul ripped from their midst. And Lily felt it deepest of all. 12 years old, small, quiet, tender. But when she realized Light was missing, something inside her broke and something else ignited. She wandered the camp, Heartwarming her name. Her shoes traced the old paths they used to walk, now littered with silence. She searched behind kennels, under cabins, into the woods. Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears, a constant blur of memory and ache. Light wasn't just her dog. Light was her anchor, her teacher, her guardian in a world that had often been too loud, too cruel. Without him, the world tilted. She wasn't the only one grieving. The whole camp moved like it had lost its rhythm, like it had lost its heartbeat. But Lily wasn't ready to mourn. Not yet. Clutching Ember to her chest, she whispered a promise into the young pup's ear. "We're going to find him." Her voice was thin, but sure. Ember didn't bark. He didn't move. He simply pressed closer the way Light used to. It was a passing conversation that lit the path. During a quiet group walk through the woods, Lily overheard some of the older kids, Heartwarming. A secret auction. Animal traffickers. Someone said they heard about rare dogs being sold, ones with special traits. The words burned in her chest. She didn't hesitate. That night, as the forest held its breath and the stars blinked through the trees, Lily snuck into the vet's cabin. Dr. Mason. He was her mother's old friend, a soft-spoken man with calloused hands and kind eyes. A man who'd once knelt beside Light's shaking body on her first day at Pine Grove, and whispered, "You're safe now, boy." A man who believed dogs weren't property, they were purpose. Lily told him everything, her theory, her fear, her plan, and Mason listened not as an adult doubting a child, but as a soldier hearing the truth. When Lily finished, her voice quivering with urgency, Mason leaned back in her chair. He looked at Ember, then at Lily. Then slowly, he nodded. "We're going to get him back," he said, "no matter what it takes." And just like that, the rescue began. Not with sirens, not with police, but with a girl who refused to give up. A pup too young to understand but loyal enough to follow, and a man who had seen too many good dogs disappear. Together, they stepped into the shadows. And somewhere, deep inside a cage, Light waited, holding on to the memory of a little girl who once whispered, "I will always come back for you." Lily stepped into Dr. Mason's modest clinic, the air still faintly carrying the scent of antiseptic and warm fur. Her hands trembled, but her voice held a quiet fire. Word by word, she laid out the story from the day Light vanished to the Heartwarming rumors of an underground animal auction buried deep within Pine Grove's shadows. Each sentence was a plea, a heartbeat, a cry for help wrapped in courage. Dr. Mason sat still, eyes sharp beneath her wire-frame glasses. He wasn't just hearing a story about a stolen dog. He was witnessing a testament to love, to a bond so unshakable, it could pierce even the darkest silence. "Tur isn't about property," he finally said, her voice low and steady. "Tur is about loyalty, and I won't let it end like Tur." He made a promise, one forged in trust. With decades of experience and connections throughout Pine Grove, from local shelters to backdoor law enforcement, Mason vowed to help Lily uncover the truth, to infiltrate the auction if needed, and to bring Light home. That night, for the first time in days, Lily didn't feel alone. Beside her stood Ember, small, watchful, her black coat shimmering in the hallway light. And with Mason's silent resolve at her back, Lily's heart beat stronger. She could feel it. A pulse of something unbreakable. They were coming for Light, and Light, trapped in a cold steel cage beneath the hush of a high-security warehouse, waited. The secret auction was no ordinary event. It was clean, professional, cruel. Held in a refrigerated concrete vault beneath a warehouse disguised as a logistics center, the room pulsed with quiet tension. Men in tailored suits and mirrored sunglasses stood in hushed clusters. Their conversations weren't about animals, they were about assets, value, return on investment. No names, no laughter, just numbers WW like knives. And then, Light was wheeled in. Even after all he'd endured, the hunger, the beatings, the forced silence, Light moved with grace. Her black coat, though dulled, caught the sterile overhead lights with an almost regal sheen. Her frame, lean but proud, stood like a warrior who'd never kneeled. And her eyes, those eyes, scanned the crowd with calm defiance. He did not flinch. He did not plead. He watched. The room went quiet. That's when it happened. From the far entrance, a cry broke the stillness. "Light!" All eyes turned. It was Lily. She had broken past security, had slipped through the crowd like a spark through dry grass, and now she stood, trembling, at the threshold. Her voice cracked but carried. "That's my dog." It wasn't just a declaration. It was a lifeline. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her voice raw, full of everything she'd held inside, echoed through the chamber like thunder in a chapel. "Please, that's my best friend." For a moment, the room froze. Even the auctioneer's gavel hovered mid-air. Then chaos surged. Adults rushed to contain her, voices scrambled to quiet the outburst. But Lily didn't retreat. She didn't apologize. She looked at Light, and Light looked back. And that was enough. Dr. Mason appeared at her side, her coat drenched from the rain outside, eyes blazing. He stepped between Lily and the crowd like a wall. "We have reason to believe her animal was stolen," Mason said flatly, pulling out documents, medical records, photos proof. The organizers began to squirm. Murmurs filled the room. And then, from the side of the platform, a man stepped forward. Thomas Gray, a longtime animal advocate. Quiet, meticulous, respected. He had followed Light's story from the beginning, had seen the bond between dog and child in photos, in field reports, in Mason's late-night calls. He took the microphone with calm authority. "To her dog doesn't belong here," he said, eyes sweeping the crowd. "To her dog belongs with her." And for the first time that night, the room fell silent, not from greed, but from respect. What came next wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A man in a gray coat unlocked the cage, and Light, still watching, still waiting, stepped forward. Not with fear, but with purpose. He walked past the money, past the cold, and into Lily's arms. She collapsed to her knees, wrapping herself around him, sobbing into her fur. Light didn't move. He simply rested her head against her shoulder and closed her eyes. They were home. Right there, in the middle of strangers and concrete and power suits, they were home. Ember joined them moments later, tail swishing softly as he pressed against Light's side. 3 souls, bound by something deeper than words. Outside, the storm had cleared. Inside, the light had returned. The air in the room grew heavy the moment Thomas raised her hand. $12,000. Her voice rang clear, calm, steady, but the number hit the crowd like a wave crashing into stone. People gasped, heads turned. Even the auctioneer paused mid-breath, as if time itself had forgotten how to move forward. Lily stood frozen. That number, it wasn't just a bid. It was a lifeline. A rescue rope tossed into the heart of the storm she'd been drowning in. For the first time in days, something warm spread in her chest, not panic, not pain, but hope. Her eyes welled with tears, not the helpless kind, but the kind that rises when you realize someone out there is fighting for what you love, fighting with you, for light. When the final gavel fell, the room exhaled, and Lily, still trembling, saw Thomas step off the platform and walk toward her. He didn't say much, just reached out and gently took her small hand in her. "Light's not going anywhere, Lily," he said, voice low. "Sure, I'll keep him safe. When it's time, he'll come home to you." That promise landed deeper than any words had before. It wrapped around her like a blanket on a cold morning, giving her breath, giving her peace. Dr. Mason stood nearby, arms crossed, eyes soft with pride. He nodded a quiet vow that her fight wasn't over, that together they'd bring light back fully, officially, permanently. And Ember Sweet, watchful Ember, leaned gently against Lily's leg, her presence grounding her to the earth, reminding her that love doesn't end when someone leaves. It waits. It holds the line. Lily was ready now, ready for the next chapter, ready for the wait, because love liked her? It doesn't fade. It finds its way back. That fall morning at Greenwood Shelter looked like something out of a painting. Sunlight filtered through crimson leaves, casting a warm golden glow across the forest floor. The air smelled of damp soil and old cedar, peaceful, still. Birds called softly from the trees, and the wind whispered gently through the high branches, as if nature itself was holding its breath. But in the hearts of the people at the shelter, peace didn't quite reach. Lily woke alone. No soft weight beside her, no quiet breath warming the space near her side, just the cold hum of silence. Light wasn't there. She sat up slowly, chest tight, heart raw. The room felt unfamiliar without him, emptier, like something had been scooped out of her. Barefoot, she stepped onto the wooden floor, crossing quietly to the door. Outside, the world was golden. Calm, but to her, every breeze, every rustling leaf only deepened the ache. She wandered the paths around the shelter paths she and Light had walked so many times, but now they felt strange, silent. Each step she took echoed in her chest like a memory that wouldn't settle. "Light!" She herpered, just her name. Barely a sound. But it carried through the trees like prayer. Behind her, staff members moved quietly. Children played with less laughter. And Ember, faithful little Ember, walked a few steps behind, ears alert, eyes searching the horizon as if he too was waiting for something only the heart could feel. Everyone knew something had changed. Not just the absence of a dog, but the absence of something bigger, something that tied them all together. And yet Lily still believed. Even in the silence, even in the distance, she believed Light would return. Not just because he was hers, but because some lights, no matter how far they're taken, always find their way back home. The forest held its breath. A hush had fallen over the shelter, not because anyone told it to, but because grief has a way of stealing sound. People moved slower, spoke softer, like they were afraid to admit what they were truly feeling, that Light might not come back, But Lily stood alone at the edge of the trees, her eyes brimming with tears, yet still unbroken. She didn't just remember Light, she felt him, in every breath, every leaf falling around her, the echo of her paws on wet ground, the warmth of her body curled beside her on cold mornings, the quiet strength in her eyes. Lily knew deep down that Light wasn't the kind of soul who disappeared without a trace. Not him. Not the one who taught her how to be brave. So she closed her eyes, clenched her fists, and let her heart do the only thing it could. Hope. Not the kind that's loud or reckless, but the kind that burns soft and low, steady like a candle in the dark. She believed her moment of pain, of absence, wasn't an end. It was a threshold, the beginning of something else. A new chapter of resilience, of faith, of friendship so fierce it defied distance. And somewhere in that old Heartwarming forest, the name Light drifted gently on the wind, not just from Lily's lips, but from the hearts of everyone at the shelter. A collective longing, a silent vow, that no matter what came next, they would walk toward the light. Together. Ember wasn't a puppy anymore. Beneath the golden haze of autumn, Ember had grown not just in size, but in presence. Her steps were quieter now, more deliberate. Her gaze held something deeper, something watchful. Each time Ember nudged Lily's hand or rested her head against her leg, it wasn't just affection. It was purpose. It was a silent reminder. You're not alone. We're still moving forward. Lily felt it too. Ember had changed, no longer the curious, wide-eyed pup. Now he moved like someone who understood, who carried weight, like a quiet guardian, shaped by the one who came before him. Light had passed something on, not just memories, but meaning. And Ember was listening. One crisp afternoon, with leaves blanketing the ground like gold and fire, Ember tugged gently on Lily's sleeve. He led her into the woods, deeper than they'd ever gone. The air was different there still, fragrant and filled with something ancient. Light danced through branches in long, dreamy strands. The forest felt alive, like it was watching, like it knew. They came to a clearing beneath an enormous tree older than memory, and there, nestled among roots and moss, lay a small bracelet of red beads, weathered by time, but intact. Beside it, a piece of paper, worn, faded, but unmistakable. Lily's drawing. She dropped to her knees, breath catching in her throat. The picture was simple, her and Light, standing beneath a moonlit sky, connected by a single red thread. She reached out with trembling fingers and picked up the bracelet. It wasn't just jewelry, it was a message, a promise, a symbol that some bonds don't vanish. They wait, quietly, patiently. And when the time is right, they call you home. Lily held it close, tears streaming down her cheeks, not from sorrow, but from the sheer weight of memory, of love, of recognition. In that moment, everything made sense. Light hadn't left her behind. He had left her a path. Ember lay still beside her, her head resting softly against Lily's leg. Her eyes carried that distant kind of sadness, not heavy, not overwhelming, just deep and full of quiet meaning. It was the kind of look that spoke without sound, a look that said, "Light's journey didn't end here. It lives on in me now." Lily ran her hand gently over Ember's back, feeling the warmth of him, the steadiness. It calmed her, like the sound of breathing in the dark. Light was no longer by her side, not in body. But Lily believed with every beat of her heart that Light's spirit, her love, her mission, still lived on through Ember. And that meant healing could continue. Comfort could still be found. And so in that soft silence beneath the sky, beneath the trees, the name Light was still being spoken. Not out loud, but in every heartbeat, in every breath of wind that moved through Pine Grove. A new chapter was beginning. And her time? It would be Lily and Ember walking forward together. Through the shadows, toward the light. Ember wasn't the playful little pup anymore. Day by day, he'd grown. Not just taller, not just stronger, but steadier, wiser. The black fur along her back had thickened into a beautiful, protective coat. And her eyes had changed most of all. There was something ancient in them now. Like he understood exactly what he carried. Like he knew that the weight of memory had been passed to him, and he was ready. Ember became Lily's shadow, always nearby, always gentle, always listening. When she felt tired or lost, Ember didn't bark or whimper. He simply leaned in, pressed her head softly into her arm, as if to say, "I've got you." When she felt afraid, Ember stood still. Not guarding, just being there. And somehow that was enough. He had grown into more than a dog. He had become her peace. But he wasn't a copy of Light. Lily saw that. Ember had her own rhythm, her own way of being. Light had been bold and brave, like a storm. Ember was more like water. Quiet, patient, steady. And Lily loved him for it. She started to realize that Her wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about continuing, evolving, writing the next part of the story together. The bond between them deepened, day by day, stronger than words, stronger than fear. It felt like an invisible thread had been tied between their hearts, and nothing could pull it apart. Lily kept the old red bead bracelet, the one that once belonged to Light, tucked safely in a box beside her bed. Not because she needed to remember, but because it reminded her what she carried forward. That bracelet wasn't just an old trinket. It was a promise, a map, a torch. And every time Lily touched it, she remembered. The journey doesn't end with loss. It continues with love. And so, step by step, she and Ember moved forward, through seasons, through silence, through sunlight. They didn't know what waited up ahead, but they carried everything they needed in their bond, in their memories, and in that steady, unwavering trust. Together they were writing something beautiful, a living story of loyalty, of healing, of hope that never gives up and love that never lets go. Under the gentle light of twilight, two companions stood side by side in the quiet hush of the old forest. Everything around them was bathed in golden warmth. The trees, the fallen leaves, even the breeze seemed to glow. It was the kind of moment that didn't need words, just presence. Ember rested her head softly on Lily's lap. Lily stroked her fur slowly, her fingers tracing the silk-like strands. That quiet moment between them wasn't just affection. It was memory. It was promise. A bridge between what had been and what was yet to come. Lily looked up toward the wide sky, where the first stars were beginning to blink through. A W. Herper rose inside her, not out loud, but clear. I will carry her forward. I will protect what Light left behind. She knew the road ahead might not be easy, but with Ember by her side, she wouldn't have to walk it alone. Their story didn't end here. It was only beginning. A new chapter 1, written in patience, in devotion, in courage, was waiting for them. And step by step, they'd move toward it, through every shadow, toward every dream. As the wind moved gently through the trees and the sun dipped behind the hills, the silhouettes of the girl and her dog melted into the forest, not as an ending, but as a beginning. A walk toward something radiant, toward the light. Morning at Hope Trails began like a breath held too long and finally exhaled. The early sunlight filtered down through lush green canopies, casting golden streaks across a forest floor carpeted with soft, dry leaves. Birds sang their layered melodies into the fresh air, and the wind moved gently through the branches as if nature itself was waking slowly, smiling. Lily was no longer the trembling child who had once hidden from the world. She had grown not just older, but deeper and steadier, and today she had been given a new role: to lead, to guide visiting school children through the sanctuary, to show them what hope looked like, what it sounded like, what it meant to heal. It was an honor, but it was also a silent reminder of the journey she'd walked alongside Light. And now, Ember. Lily walked slowly, each step moving in rhythm with the song of the forest. And as she spoke to the younger kids about the animals at the sanctuary, especially about Light and Ember, her voice carried something beautiful. Not just knowledge, but love, gratitude, awe. She told them about Light's loyalty, her bravery, about Ember's calm strength. She told them how animals can change a life not by speaking, but simply by staying, by listening, by loving you even when you can't love yourself. The children hung on every word. And Ember never left Lily's side. He walked beside her with effortless grace, her eyes sharp but kind, her body relaxed but alert. He didn't bark. He didn't seek attention. He was simply there, a quiet guardian, a living memory of everything sacred her place stood for. One glance from Ember was enough to remind the adults and children alike that strength and gentleness can live in the same soul. Watching the young ones laugh, ask questions, and reach out with wonder to touch soft fur and wagging tails, Lily felt something bloom quietly in her chest, a deep connection between humans and nature, between child and animal, between pain and possibility. She knew now that she wasn't just walking beside Ember. She was passing something on. She was telling stories, planting seeds, and every time she did, she was keeping the light alive. The morning air grew even warmer as the sound of children's laughter echoed through the trees. Lily smiled softly, her heart full of happiness and quiet hope. Inside, she whispered a promise to herself to always protect and preserve the legacy of Light, the great friend who had taught her the meaning of unconditional love. Beside her, Ember stood tall, a living testament to everything Light left behind. Every step they took together, whether along the winding paths of the sanctuary or the uncertain roads of life, felt stronger, more certain, more whole. In the heart of the forest's living canvas, surrounded by sunlight, birdsong, and the whirr of leaves, Lily and Ember had become something more than just a girl and her dog. They were symbols now of hope, of healing, of what love and loyalty between human and German shepherd could truly become. And in the gentle morning light, the two friends stood ready to turn the page, to write the next chapter. A chapter painted with the colors of devotion, resilience, and dreams that had never once gone dim. That very day, Hope Trails welcomed a special guest, a young boy named Max. It was her first time here, and everything about the place felt overwhelming. Max, who lived with autism, looked around with wide, unsure eyes. Every chirp, every rustling leaf, every unfamiliar sound seemed loud and sharp in her mind. The sanctuary, full of open space and strange animals, made him feel exposed and frightened. As the group began their tour of the grounds, Max grew visibly more tense. The chatter of the other kids, the soft bark of Ember from a distance, it all seemed to press in too closely. Then, without warning, a loud noise cracked through the quiet. Max let out a panicked scream and bolted, running blindly toward the forest at the edge of the sanctuary. Chaos followed. Adults rushed after him, calling her name, trying to calm him. Their voices clashed with the pounding of feet and the rustling of leaves. The peaceful rhythm of the forest was shattered in an instant. Lily stood frozen for a moment, and then her heart clenched. She remembered. She remembered what it felt like to be that child. The one lost in a world too loud, too big, too much. She remembered how light had found her, calmed her, stayed with her through storms no one else could see. She remembered how he had looked at her not with pity, but with understanding. And now it was her turn. Lily stepped forward, her voice soft but sure as it drifted through the trees. "Max," she called, "listen to me. Ember won't hurt you. Ember's here to help. He'll stay by your side. He'll protect you." Ember, sensing the shift, moved toward Max. Slowly, gently, not rushing, not crowding. Her head lowered slightly, ears perked, her eyes filled with something quiet and kind, the kind of presence that didn't ask for trust but earned it anyway. And somehow, the energy changed. The panic in the air softened. Max's breathing slowed. He stopped crying. Slowly, hesitantly, he sat down on the forest floor. Ember settled beside him, close but not touching, just near enough to be known. Felt, trusted. The adults exhaled, the moment rippling with relief. Lily knelt beside Max. Her voice, calm and tender, began to tell him a story about light, about Ember, about how dogs aren't just animals. They're protectors, friends, souls who walk beside us when no one else can. She told him about the time she got lost in a storm of her own, and how one dog changed everything. Max didn't say a word, but he listened. And that was enough. In that moment, Lily realized something deep in her heart. Ember was not a shadow of light. Ember was a new chapter, a new flame carrying her own strength, her own kind of love, enough to warm even the coldest hearts. Their story, hers and Ember's, had grown deeper now, richer. And Lily was ready. Ready to walk her road forward, hand in paw, offering comfort and light to anyone still searching for safety in a world that sometimes felt too loud to bear. Around them, the chaos was still unraveling. Max remained frozen in her panic, and the forest echoed with hurried footsteps, frantic voices, and sharp gasps of breath. Adults called her name. Others ran in every direction. But only Lily stood still, calm and certain. Her eyes met Ember's eyes. She had come to know better than her own reflection. Ember moved slowly, carefully. No rush, no pressure, just steady steps like a promise, like a quiet hug made of silence. Her eyes sparkled with a knowing kindness, as if saying, "It's okay, I'm here." Lily lifted her hand and began using the silent commands they had practiced together, day after day. A soft wave meant sit. A gentle tap on her knee meant stay. Ember responded perfectly, not missing a beat, calm, patient, precise. Every move he made was not just obedience. It was grace, connection, an invisible thread weaving through the moment, pulling Max back from the edge. And then something changed. Max's wide, frightened eyes softened. Her chest rose in slower, deeper breaths. Her trembling stopped. He sat down right there on the soft forest floor and looked at Ember, not with fear anymore, but with curiosity, like he was finally able to see. The tension melted from the air, replaced by something warmer, safer, still. Lily sat beside Max, her voice low and gentle as she told him the stories of light and Ember, of how love can come with pause and soft eyes, of how loyalty doesn't need words to be understood. Max didn't speak, but he listened. And that was enough. Right there in that hush, Lily understood with crystal clarity. Ember was not here to replace light. Ember was her own soul, her own strength, a protector, a quiet guardian. a flame that flickered in a different rhythm, but one just as bright. From that day forward, something shifted between Lily and Ember. Their bond deepened, woven tighter with every gentle look and thoughtful pause. They were no longer just girl and dog. They were a pair of hearts that beat in sync, two survivors who had chosen not just to endure, but to guide. With Ember beside her, Lily was no longer alone. Together they would be the voice in the silence, the hand that reached out, the light that stayed on for anyone still afraid of the dark. And so their true journey began. Not a conclusion, but a beginning. A new chapter full of impossible stories, quiet courage, and flickers of hope that would never, ever burn out. That afternoon, the pine grove forest glowed in the colors of fall golden leaves, drifting like soft memories, danced through the warm light. The trail ahead was quiet, but not empty. Lily walked at the front of her group, her heart steady, her steps sure. Ember walked beside her, tail swaying gently like a steady rhythm of comfort. Lily walked ahead, steady and sure, leading the group of young children down the golden trail. The late autumn sun filtered gently through the trees, casting honey-colored beams across the forest floor. Each step crunched softly over the carpet of fallen leaves, and each breath felt like it carried a piece of something sacred, something waiting to be remembered. There was a light in Lily's eyes, a quiet kind of pride, a love too deep to measure. She moved with grace, not like a child still learning, but like someone who had lived, who had healed, and who now carried something precious to pass on. Her voice rose softly in the breeze. She told them about Light, her first companion, her rescuer in the dark days when everything felt too loud, too fast, too cold. She spoke of the nights when Light lay beside her, still and solid, like a wall against the world. And then she spoke of Ember, the one who came after, the one who didn't replace Light, but carried her fire forward, the quiet guardian, the listener, the flame. The children hung on every word. Their wide eyes reflected the leaves above them, golden and open and full of wonder. To them, Lily wasn't just telling a story, she was opening a door to something they hadn't yet known. That courage could be four-legged, that love could be silent, and that healing sometimes had fur. Around them, the forest held its breath. The wind rustled just enough to carry Lily's words into the trees. The light fell softer, as if leaning in to listen. For a moment, it felt like even the forest itself understood the weight of what was being shared, not as a lesson, but as a memory being gifted from one heart to another. Lily turned to face the group. Her smile was small but steady, like a hand reaching out across time. Her eyes held no fear, only a deep-rooted belief in the power of kindness and loyalty. That in a world full of noise, stillness, real stillness, could change everything. Next to her, Ember sat calmly, watching, guarding, understanding. Her eyes, dark and thoughtful, flicked gently over the group. He didn't move, didn't need to. He was presence itself, a quiet echo of everything Lily had said. Not a statue, not a symbol, just there, real, solid, enough. And the children felt it. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. In that moment, they knew something had been shared with them, not just a story, but a torch. The sky had begun to shift, the blue above slowly melting into lavender. The last rays of sunlight stretched low through the canopy, casting a soft gold glow that made every leaf seem to flicker like a flame. And beneath those glowing trees, the story of Lily and Ember, two souls bound by memory and meaning, kept unfolding. Not loudly, not with fanfare. Just quietly, like a fire that never goes out. Lily paused and turned to face the group of children. The light in her eyes wasn't just from the sun. It was something deeper, a steady flame of belief in the future, in the quiet power of friendship, and in the kind of loyalty that doesn't ask to be seen, only felt. Her gentle smile carried that warmth outward, washing over the little ones with a calm so pure it softened even the breeze between the trees. Right beside her, Ember sat tall and still, the silent protector. Her gaze, deep and steady, never wavered. There was something almost human in those eyes, a knowing that Lily, the girl beside him, wasn't just another guide on another trail. She was someone carrying a legacy, someone meant to remind others how to love, how to listen, and how to begin again. Above them, the pine grove sky was turning lavender. Threads of golden light stretched long across the canopy, flickering like soft-spoken promises. And beneath those herpering trees, the story of Lily and Ember continued, a quiet flame that never dimmed, warming the hearts of those who chose to believe. Lily slowly rolled up her sleeve. The children leaned in, their eyes curious. Etched into her skin, glowing faintly in the last light of day, was a wolf paw. Not a tattoo, not a mark of style, but a symbol of something ancient, something unspoken, something passed down through a bond deeper than blood. Lily looked around at the small faces staring back at her, her voice low but full of conviction. "Her," she said, gently tapping the mark, "isn't just ink, it's a promise. It means I carry a different kind of blood, the kind that listens to the forest, the kind that remembers, the kind that never walks alone." She told them what her mentor Joseph once told her, the old storyteller, the guardian of their people's ways. "We are the ones who carry the different blood," he had said, "not to be ashamed, not to hide, but because it connects us to the land, to each other, to something far older and stronger than fear." A hush fell over the group. Even the wind seemed to still as Lily spoke. The children looked at the mark glowing on her wrist, not as a curiosity anymore, but as something sacred, something real. And in that moment, Lily became more than a guide, more than a girl. She became a symbol of strength, of survival, of hope, of everything light had once taught her and everything Ember now continued to show. Their story wasn't a fairy tale. It was a torch, one passed hand to hand, paw to paw, heart to heart. And as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting the forest in golden violet, Lily and Ember stood quietly among the falling leaves, a living reminder that we all carry something special. That difference isn't something to fear. It's a gift. In that moment, Pine Grove became more than just a forest. It was sacred ground, a place where memories breathed and hope quietly took flight. The golden light of sunset stretched like a soft blanket across the winding trails, as if guiding every footstep of Lily and the children toward something new. Something is waiting just beyond the trees. Lily looked down at the mark on her wrist, the paw print that had lived with her for so long. A quiet wave rose in her chest. Not grief, not lost, but something stronger. Faith. Faith in the bond that lived beyond time, in the strength passed down from soul to soul, in the quiet guardians like Ember who carried that legacy without needing to speak it, and most of all, in love, the kind that never fades, the kind that grows quietly in the heart. As the stillness of the forest settled around them, the story of the ones who bear the mark gently reached its final page. But endings, as Lily now knew, are never really endings. They're doors. And her one had just opened to 1,000 new stories. Stories of loyalty, love, and dreams that refuse to die. Beneath the old tree at the edge of Pine Grove, Ember rested at Lily's feet, ears perked, eyes sharp. Ever watchful, ever ready. He didn't need words. He never had. One look was enough. In it was a promise. I'm here. I see you. I'll keep you safe. The autumn wind whirred through the leaves, carrying gold and silence. Leaves fluttered down like soft wings, dancing between the roots and light, landing gently around them. Nature seemed to hold its breath not out of fear, but reverence. Lily felt it too. Ember wasn't just a dog. He was a companion, a quiet force, a living memory of what came before and a beating heart for what came next. Every time he rested her head on her leg, Lily remembered, even when life gets hard, even when the path grows dark, she would never be alone. Somewhere in the wind, in the hush between trees, Lily could feel another presence. She didn't see it, but she knew. Light was still watching, still walking beside her. The kind of love they shared couldn't be buried, couldn't be broken. It had become something greater, something no trial could touch. Lily looked down at Ember, smiled softly, and W. whirred. We were born different. Not wrong. Just made for something else. That wasn't just a message to herself. It was for anyone who's ever felt out of place, misunderstood, or lost. Anyone searching for where they belong. Their story didn't end here. It opened again, a new chapter, a new journey, one full of wonder, courage, and quiet magic, led by the truth that friendship, loyalty, and the strength of being different are not burdens. They are light. In the cold wilds of Montana's Pine Grove, the story of Lily and Light and now Ember reminds us of something rare and real. Healing doesn't always come from doctors or time. Sometimes it comes from the soft nudge of a muzzle on your knee, from a paw pressed gently into your hand, from a heart that sees yours and simply stays. And if you've ever been doubted, betrayed, or falsely accused, hold your truth gently but firmly. Collect your proof. Speak when you're ready. Trust those who've earned it. And never forget. There are still those who believe you. Sometimes they walk on 4 legs. And sometimes they never leave, not even after they're gone. The heart, and those we hold dear, especially our children, deserve to heal. And healing begins not only with time, but with resilience, with choosing to share our truth and to let others in. The story of Lily and Light is more than just a tale. It's a quiet, powerful reminder that even in our darkest hours, love and understanding can unlock something extraordinary. Together, they've left behind a message, one about empathy, about patience, and about the unspoken bond that can light the way forward. Have you ever been doubted? Or felt the sting of betrayal? How did you get through it? We'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Maybe your words are exactly what someone else needs to keep going. Maybe your experience will remind someone they're not alone. What helped you heal? What gave you the strength to stand again? Share your voice. Let's build a community rooted in love, in compassion, and in the quiet courage it takes to believe, to forgive, and to begin again.